Verna's bloodline was known for undergoing divine blood awakening at the age of 15, granting them the ability to utilize divine blood powers. However, most individuals within the bloodline only tapped into these powers to enhance their mana pool, gaining considerable strength. But if someone could fully control divine blood, they would attain unparalleled power. Shock spread among the trainees as they discussed Mord's abilities. They couldn't believe that a mere 15-year-old could already wield divine blood powers. Kessner, too, was taken aback and pondered over the situation. He was considered the most talented among the children, had taken 4 years to awaken his divine powers. Yet, this outsider, who had been present for only 8 days, had already achieved that state. Daisley expressed disbelief, his thoughts fixated on Mord's silver eyes. He was certain that the Mord had awakened his divine blood powers, finding it impossible to comprehend. Mord suggested that the only thing Daisley would lose by quitting was his pride. He questioned if Daisley still wished to continue. Daisley retorted, refusing to back down. He laughed off the idea of losing to a beginner like the young prodigy, despite his ability to utilize divine blood powers. However, in a split second, Mord appeared before him and reminded him that it was he who had declined the offer to quit. Mord initiated an attack, and Daisley confidently declared that he wouldn't succumb to the same technique again, believing it would have no effect. Despite Daisley blocking the attack with his shield, he was sent flying backward, crashing onto the ground. Astonished, he realized the power of divine blood. Mord examined his hand, admitting that the attack might have been too strong. He expressed his confusion, unable to fully comprehend his own abilities. Daisley was filled with disbelief and thought about his defeat at the hands of a mere 15-year-old. Determined, he rose from the ground, refusing to be toyed with and declaring that he would never lose to someone as young as Mord. Daisley realized that he could no longer use his left shoulder, but understood that his entire future would be at stake if he were defeated in this moment. Staying true to his words, Daisley charged at Mord, proclaiming that such a defeat could not be allowed to happen. Swinging his sword, he shouted, commanding Mord to die. Mord stood unfazed, and he then charged back at Daisley and questioned how long Daisley would protect his feeble pride. Daisley evaded the attack and positioned himself behind Mord, warning him not to let his guard down. He asserted that no matter how strong Mord believed himself to be, Daisley possessed superior battle techniques. Daisley seized an opportunity to strike Mord from behind, resulting in a massive red blast that engulfed the area. Kessner, observing the scene, acknowledged Daisley's ability to turn the tables when Mord's guard was down. However, he recognized that the true strength of the Verna's family lay in their physical bodies, surpassing the impact of sword-based attacks for those who had awakened their divine blood. Daisley was shocked and exclaimed at the lack of damage inflicted by his attack on Mord. In response, Mord gazed at him and declared that Daisley had no right to be an instructor. Daisley was taken aback, unable to believe that his years of training on the battlefield had rendered him powerless against this young kid. He couldn't fathom the idea that there was nothing he could do when faced with this situation. Exclaiming in disbelief, Daisley launched an attack on Mord, but to his astonishment, Mord didn't even flinch. Daisley relentlessly swung his sword, yet it had no effect whatsoever. Mord approached Daisley, coming face to face with him, and expressed his disappointment in Daisley's behavior despite his evident weakness. Daisley, fueled by anger, shouted at Mord, questioning his audacity to speak to him in such a manner. Mord effortlessly caught Daisley's sword with his hand and calmly explained that as descendants of the god of combat, they fought with their bare hands because no weapon could surpass the strength of their own physical bodies. He questioned whether Daisley truly believed that an attack like his would be capable of causing any damage. Mord increased his grip on the sword, causing Daisley intense pain. Daisley cried out in agony as Mord tightened his hold, and blood sprayed from his mouth. Daisley pleaded for Mord to stop. Finally, Mord released his grip on the sword and declared that Daisley should accept his defeat. He offered Daisley a chance to live if he acknowledged his loss. However, Mord warned that if Daisley refused to accept his defeat, he would kill him without hesitation this time. Daisley, overwhelmed by fear and regret, realized that he had never truly stood a chance against Mord. He fell to his knees and bowed, acknowledging his defeat. The onlookers shouted in disbelief, amazed that the child of Vernars had managed to defeat Daisley. Kessner observed Mord and thought about how this young descendant of Vernars had awakened his divine blood after only 8 days of joining the family. Not only that, but he had also extinguished his instructor's fighting spirit with the power of the god of combat. Kessner walked away, unable to fathom the extent of Mord's potential growth. He acknowledged it as a remarkable battle. Meanwhile, the celebrations of Mord's victory reverberated throughout the training grounds, reaching even beyond its confines. People chanted Mord's name in awe and admiration. Outside the training grounds, a mysterious figure stood, their face concealed by dark clothes. The figure remarked on Mord's impressive abilities and how they had heard rumors about a brave kid who had made a bold request to their instructor for the god of combat's spirit. The figure, Erna Vernars, the 7th traditional bloodline of Vernars, revealed herself with a smile. She found Mord's talent intriguing and anticipated that something interesting might unfold in the future. Inside the castle of Archduke Vernars, the Archduke sat on his throne, observing Mord. Archduke seemed aware of Mord's recent achievements as a warrior, having heard about his successful encounter with the god of combat's spirit. Mord, having arrived at the castle, expressed his intention to claim the promised reward. Archduke acknowledged Mord's audacity and questioned whether his sole purpose in acquiring the god of combat's spirit was to become a warrior. Mord explained that he felt compelled to step in when he witnessed the instructor neglecting his duties. The Archduke, approaching Mord, conveyed the Vernars' belief in the strength of those who fight for what is right, expressing his acceptance of Mord's actions. Radiating an imposing aura, the Archduke inquired about Mord's past decision to conceal his true strength from him. Mord confidently clarified that he had merely exercised caution in managing his mana while utilizing the impulse, as it was his first time employing it. While the Archduke could sense that Mord's explanation might not be entirely truthful, he chose to move on. The Archduke, acknowledging Mord's purpose, confirmed his desire to challenge the god of combat's grave, ensuring that Mord's wish remained unchanged. Mord affirmed his commitment to that goal. An attendant approached Archduke, expressing concerns about his decision to allow Mord to challenge the god of combat's grave before the officially announced warriors. The attendant worried about potential complaints from others. The Archduke, furious at the audacity of the attendant, questioned their right to challenge his decision. The attendant immediately realized their mistake and apologized for overstepping their bounds. Despite the attendant's intervention, the Archduke affirmed his commitment to his promise and allowed Mord to proceed with the challenge. Though he didn't understand Mord's motivations, he agreed to honor his request. Mord humbly bowed and expressed gratitude to the Archduke for the opportunity. As Mord smiled, he contemplated his desire to collect his first world fragment, a thought that filled him with anticipation. Accompanied by Kessner, Mord arrived near a massive gate that marked the entrance to the god of combat's grave. Kessner informed Mord that only one person could enter at a time and emphasized that unless one died, no one else could enter to assist them. Mord observed the grand entrance and marveled at its size. He had known that the god of combat's grave was located in the basement of the Archduke's stronghold, but the scale of the entrance surprised him. Kessner expressed disbelief at Mord's fortune in getting the opportunity to challenge the grave first. Mord admitted that he hadn't anticipated such a swift chance to undertake the challenge. Kessner acknowledged Mord's achievement and assured him that his efforts had earned him this opportunity. He advised Mord to return alive. Mord approached the gate, expressing gratitude to Kessner. He paused before the gate, experiencing an unusual sensation just by standing in front of it. He recalled the founding myth of the Vernars Duchy, where the god of combat Vernars had transcended mortality and ascended to godhood without ever facing death. The name God of Combat's grave held a different meaning, representing the human aspect of the deity and the remnants left behind. As Mord opened the gate, he reflected on Aiden's experience 7 years in the future, discovering a world fragment inside the god of combat's grave with the help of an aide. However, he believed that the world fragment should still be present at this point in time. Upon entering the gate, a surprised expression crossed Mord's face. The scene before him differed greatly from the grave described in Magician Who Dominates the World. The god of combat's grave contained 6 distinct layouts, and the one depicted in the book was merely one of the possibilities. Regardless of the layout, Mord knew that they all contained a seal, represented by a stone statue symbolizing the god's life. As he explored further, Mord found the surroundings lacking in realism, almost resembling an incomplete computer-generated design. Suddenly, Mord turned around and spotted 2 hellhounds breathing fire. He recognized them as hellhounds and realized he would have to face multiple monsters, contrary to his hopes. Remaining calm, Mord swiftly dispatched the hellhounds with a single punch, eliminating them effortlessly. Mord continued his journey, feeling that such encounters needlessly drained his energy without serving a significant purpose. Mord came across a large statue and realized that he had found a seal. The statue depicted the god of combat defeating Etten during his youth, but he questioned why such an image was used as a seal. He noticed a human figure positioned atop the massive 2-headed orc statue, and thought that the figure appeared full of self-love. He hadn't expected finding the seal to be so easy since it was located in a high and conspicuous spot. A surge of mana enveloped Mord, and he remarked that it was time to begin. With a leap, he propelled himself off the ground and landed on top of the statue. Looking ahead, he observed the human statue on top and realized it represented the god of combat in his youth. This revelation explained why all the descendants of Vernars were known for their impressive stature. Mord activated his divine blood powers and made a small cut on his wrist. With blood trickling down, he approached the statue and dropped a few drops onto its head. Once the task was complete, Mord deactivated his divine blood powers. He reflected on how difficult it would have been to figure out what to do without any prior knowledge. Who would have guessed that after awakening their divine blood, they would need to drop blood onto the statue of the god of combat? Mord prepared himself for what lay ahead, wearing a smile of satisfaction. He acknowledged his gratitude for being the first to claim the seal. As Mord began to walk away, small cracks started appearing on the statue. It almost seemed as if the statue's gaze followed Mord's departing figure. Mord continued his journey and encountered various types of monsters as he made his way to the other seal locations. Observing the sudden appearance of these creatures, Mord expressed his frustration, remarking that they seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Despite his progress, Mord couldn't help but wonder if he had traveled far enough to reach another seal. An enormous snake-like monster lunged at Mord, prompting him to reflect on the straightforward nature of the trials associated with the god of combat. With a powerful punch, Mord swiftly dispatched the monster, solidifying his belief that enemies should be dealt with decisively. He believed that someone like the god of combat would never accept someone who avoided a trial. Mord noticed flying monsters, realizing that they served as guards atop the walls to prevent anyone from climbing over. He found solace in the fact that he wouldn't have to face them as long as he remained on the ground. Having found 5 of the seals, Mord recognized that he only needed to locate the last one to finally obtain the world fragment he sought. As he journeyed deeper, Mord sensed an increasing presence of mana, which prompted him to contemplate his diminishing reserves due to awakening his divine blood 5 times. Spotting a massive dragon statue, Mord realized that he had arrived at the 6th seal. He couldn't help but remark on the size of the statue, considering that even climbing it would prove troublesome. Suddenly, a loud noise caught Mord's attention, and he swiftly turned around to face a colossal monster, an ogre. Mord recognized the ogre as a formidable opponent, mentioning that even magic fighters proficient in sword impulse would struggle against it. He had heard that ogres possess dense mana and physical bodies on par with those enhanced by physical reinforcement level 1. The ogre let out a thunderous roar and launched a punch at Mord, who swiftly evaded the attack, realizing that this ogre was no ordinary creature. Its size exceeded that of a typical ogre, standing at over 5 meters tall. Undeterred, the ogre unleashed another punch, but Mord skillfully dodged it, preparing himself for a more engaging fight. He recognized that the battle would be far from easy. Mord retaliated with a powerful punch to the ogre's head, causing it to stagger backwards slightly. However, the ogre quickly seized Mord in its enormous hand and flung him forcefully into a nearby wall. As Mord crashed into the wall, coughing up blood, he contemplated whether his mastery of impulse alone would be enough to defeat the ogre. The ogre lunged at Mord once again, its confidence evident in its smile. However, suddenly, a radiant glow emanated from the wall. Accepting the truth, Mord acknowledged the fact that he was still a beginner with good genetics. The ogre was sent flying backward, collapsing to the ground. Mord, now sporting white hair and surrounded by immense mana, expressed frustration, realizing he could have lost his life if he had been a second too late. The ogre rose to its feet, growling, but Mord swiftly leaped into action, attacking the ogre while commanding it to be silent. As Mord's punch landed on the ogre, a brilliant glow enveloped the area. Standing over the headless corpse of the ogre, Mord contemplated the situation, realizing he had been forced to awaken his divine blood. He admitted to his own conceit, acknowledging that he had underestimated the need for his divine blood powers to defeat the ogre. Mord then jumped towards the head of the dragon statue, contemplating the nature of the dungeon he found himself in, which even 15-year-olds from traditional bloodlines could challenge. He recognized the significance of battle knowledge and education and vowed to start anew once he emerged from this ordeal. Mord landed on top of the statue's head, noticing another statue of the god of combat. He couldn't help but find it peculiar that the god of combat statue appeared smaller in height compared to Archduke Vernars. Mord speculated whether the god of combat had grown taller later on. Curious about the statue, Mord let a few drops of his blood fall onto its head, contemplating whether it would make any difference. He concluded that the details might not matter much in the grand scheme of things since he had finally obtained the world fragment. Mord waited patiently, expecting something to happen, but nothing occurred. Perplexed, he voiced his confusion, wondering if he had done something wrong. Recalling the information he had read in Magician Who Dominates the World, Mord questioned whether he had missed a crucial step in activating the stone statues with his blood. Deciding to walk away, Mord thought it might be necessary to revisit each of the other seals to ensure he hadn't overlooked any important actions. Just as Mord was about to depart, he heard a voice calling out to him. The voice remarked on his hot-tempered nature, mentioning that it was to be expected since he was the speaker's descendant. In shock, Mord turned back and stammered, asking how it was possible. Before him stood an old man with white hair and a muscular physique. The old man greeted Mord with a smile, stating that he would be disappointed if Mord were to leave just like that, emphasizing their connection as descendants. Mord's mind raced, realizing that the statue he had encountered was alive. Mord contemplated the reason behind his decision to enter the god of combat's grave. He recalled Aiden's account of obtaining a world fragment within it, information he had learned from the book Magician Who Dominates the World. However, the old man, wearing a smile, interrupted Mord and expressed his desire to converse with a descendant, implying that he would not let Mord leave so easily. Mord's thoughts raced as he realized that the stone statue had started moving, questioning if this was a hidden trial. Curious about the old man's identity, Mord inquired about who he was. With a smile, the old man replied, exclaiming his amusement at Mord's energy. He then diverted the conversation, asking Mord about his age. Mord activated divine blood and responded by reiterating his question, demanding to know the old man's identity. The old man, still smiling, commented on Mord's actions but warned him against rushing, referring to him as a descendant. Suddenly, Mord launched a punch at the old man, who effortlessly blocked the attack and smirked at Mord's attempt. In response, the old man kicked Mord, sending him flying through the air. Swiftly, the old man leaped up, preparing for another attack, and indicated that he would provide Mord with a proper greeting. He landed a powerful punch to Mord's stomach, sending him hurtling downward. Mord crashed into the ground but managed to rise from the resulting hole, questioning if what he was witnessing was an illusion. Moments ago, it had been a stone statue, but now it resembled a real human. With a smirk, the old man spoke to Mord, referring to him as a descendant and questioning whether Mord truly didn't recognize who he was. Mord responded, acknowledging that he was aware of the old man's identity as the stone statue of the god of combat, Vernars. The old man, known as Vernars, confirmed Mord's observation, describing himself as what the god of combat Vernars left behind, a shadow in human form. Mord was taken aback, realizing that within Magician Who Dominates the World, the god of combat's grave was said to contain remnants of his human self. Thus, this grave was better suited for his human form rather than his godly form. Additionally, the book mentioned the existence of stone statues representing his life achievements. Mord contemplated whether the remnants were imbued within those statues, carrying the will of the god of combat. Vernars remarked that Mord seemed to find it difficult to believe the truth. He then expressed his intent to demonstrate the reality of the situation. With a grin on his face, Vernars prepared to throw a punch, claiming that reality could be painful. As Vernars struck, Mord swiftly blocked the attack using his arm. Vernars chuckled, admitting that he had underestimated Mord's strength, realizing that Mord was not as strong as he initially thought. In response, Mord launched a counter-attack, urging Vernars to stop playing with him. Vernars smiled, pleased with Mord's energy and determination, seeing it as what he expected from his descendant. As Vernars pressed forward, Mord swiftly appeared behind him, catching Vernars off guard. Surprised, Vernars turned to face Mord's next move. Mord gathered energy in his hand and hurled it at Vernars, declaring his intent to defeat him. Unfazed, Vernars expressed his surprise at Mord's deceptive tactic, acknowledging that he hadn't expected such a trick. Vernars retaliated, punching the incoming attack, resulting in a powerful burst of light engulfing the scene. As the luminous cloud faded away, Vernars noted that even the ball of impulse Mord had used was a fake. Mord seized the opportunity during the distraction to launch another attack, but Vernars swiftly caught him by the head, tossing him into the air. In mid-air, Vernars continued his assault on Mord, attacking relentlessly. Vernars laughed, relishing the sensation of defeating his opponents with his bare hands. Meanwhile, Mord, enduring the onslaught, questioned his inability to overcome Vernars even with the power of divine blood. The vast difference in their strength left him wondering if it was all a dream. Vernars struck Mord, slamming him into the ground, and delivering another punch while chastising him for his perceived weakness as a young fool. Mord, lying on the floor, contemplated the incredible power possessed by a stone statue like Vernars, realizing the extent of the situation. Vernars continued his assault, causing Mord to fly and collide with the wall. Disappointed, Vernars expressed his dissatisfaction, asserting that Mord's performance would have resulted in his death if it were a real battle. Mord, fueled by determination, stood up and defiantly told Vernars to shut up, declaring that he was not done yet. Suddenly, Mord was taken aback as his white hair returned to its normal color. In disbelief, Mord realized that his awakened divine blood state had been released. Vernars, disappointed, looked at Mord and questioned the ease with which his divine blood state had been nullified, wondering if all his descendants were as weak as Mord. Approaching Mord, Vernars stated that enough time had been wasted on introductions, noting that he wouldn't beat Mord to death when he was already on the brink of defeat. He challenged Mord to believe in his true identity now. Mord hesitated before asking if Vernars was indeed the god of combat Vernars or his shadow. Vernars replied that, within this place, Mord could consider him as Vernars. He revealed that he had witnessed numerous individuals attempting to conquer this dungeon, but Mord was the first one to awaken him in this manner. Vernars asked Mord if he knew how long it had been since he was last awakened. Mord responded calmly, stating that it had been 500 years. Vernars expressed shock, repeating the duration of time in disbelief.